Hey everyone, welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is a pop rock singer-songwriter based in Athens, Georgia. He's got two singles out right now called Lisa Simpson Fangs and Horror Movie Plot, which are on his newest album coming out later this year. Before we get the episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow me at Parker Whirling and at On That Note Podcast on Instagram. And on that note, please welcome Drew Beskin. I'm sitting here with Drew Beskin, a pop rock singer-songwriter based in Athens, Georgia. He has two new singles out right now, Lisa Simpson Fangs and Horror Movie Plot, off of his upcoming album, which should be coming out sometime in 2022. You need to go check out those two songs, Lisa Simpson Fangs and Horror Movie Plot, both great names for songs, by the way. But they're such cool songs. I really love the trajectory they take, especially Horror Movie Plot kind of feels like three songs in one 5-minute piece. I would love to know about the writing and recording process behind these two new songs, as well as maybe this upcoming album, and if there was any different approach with these songs, whether in the writing process, the recording process, or even the release process, was anything different compared to previous releases. I know when I first heard them, to me, it kind of seems like with this new album, maybe you let loose a little bit more on the recording techniques and the arranging. It just seems like you got really, really creative with this one.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. A lot of that has to do with, so those two songs in particular come from an album that I'm releasing probably end of August or September, and I guess it's technically my fourth solo record, but it's a record that I made with Tommy Troutwine, Elijah Johnston, and Gideon Johnston, and up until then, I've made records for my solo project also with a few other bands that I've had, but it was always this mentality in the studio where I write 10 or 12 songs and go in the studio, and the first 2 days, bass, drums, knock out that, and then go back and do kind of work everything from there. But the first 2 days is very live performance, ready, just knock out the songs, and that's kind of really the only way I knew how to do it. I'm not really someone who records at home or builds a track. I like to write the song and then just kind of let it happen. But with Tommy, and then I've always wanted to work with Tommy and Elijah, and then I met Gideon through that, but I didn't really have any plans for an album. And I wrote a song, and I was just kind of sitting on it saying, this would be a good track to go record with Tommy and Elijah and Gideon, and that was great. That was super fun. And then I wrote another song. I was like, well, and then this was all during lockdown, and Tommy's place is at the time was a mile from my place. I would walk over there, or we'd schedule time and we'd go over there. So the first song went great, and the second song went great, better than the first one, or at least we thought. And then the third one we even felt better, and then started. And I was writing these kind of in real time. Didn't have these songs I'd been saving up and kind of crafting an album. It was more here's this song is done. I'd like to go record it now. And then we spent a full day on the track. And Lisa Simpson Fangs and Horror Movie Plot, the album we made is 11 songs, and basically the album, when you hear the album, when we release it, it's in order from when the album was written and when the songs were recorded. So the first track on the record would be the first song written for the project, and then we recorded it all in one day. And so Lisa Simpson Fangs was the fifth time we went and did this into the studio, and Horror Movie Plot was the sixth time. And when, especially working with those guys, everyone was very emotionally invested in the songs, and seeing what can we do here, how can we change this up, how we can make it work. Some of the songs set the click track, built the track. Some of the songs we did live and without a click, but it was just so refreshing to not have to over the course of however many months or a year or a few years sometimes put together like this list of 10 songs, like this is the album. It was like, here's this song that we're going in, we're knowing. And what's cool about that is like, when you're doing that, you realize like what song you're bringing, everyone's kind of deciding, is this song worth 8 hours, 10 hours? Because maybe when you bring 10 or 12 songs in and you're knocking them all real quick, you're not really, maybe that's when you realize after you release a record that 3 or 4 of the songs aren't maybe as good as the others.
Were there any songs that didn't make the cut because of that?
No, which was great. I mean, I might have had some ideas that kind of whittled down, but we were doing this thing. Sorry, are you hearing dogs barking? That might be my dogs.
Just a little bit, but that's okay.
Well, I apologize. I have 3 little dogs, and I think my wife just got home.
In classic Athens fashion, you've got 3 bulldogs. I love it.
No, they're not bulldogs. They're just little dogs.
Oh, little dogs. I thought you said bulldogs.
No, one's a Pomeranian, and 2 are like some sort of Chihuahua mixes.
So it's like the opposite of a bulldog.
Yes. But, yeah, so we would also do this thing, after the 3rd or 4th song, we realized we were making a record. I always have like these notes of ideas, like this could be, like either it's just a piece of music, or a lyric, or a chorus, or sometimes it's a song title. And when we started doing it, I started whittling down the song ideas I had, and I would even like send the guys like, here are 6 or 7 of the songs I'm working on based on the title. What are you feeling for this Friday when we meet together? And then they would pick the song, and then because they picked it, I would like, okay, well, that means I'm finishing it. So it was just kind of, it all felt very organic and it felt very much like I got to like feel like an artist and like kind of like craft something instead of like compiling these songs and like, let's just get it out. It just felt like a method that like worked, and I didn't really question it. And it seemed like by the time you hear the last song, which on the record, which I think is one of the strongest songs in many ways, seems like we had like really figured out our full strengths. And that's kind of why I released those 2 Lisa Simpson horror movie, because they were the kind of the middle. And it's kind of, and because after it gets really experimental, and we had that I guess after doing that 5 or 6 days together, by the time we get the horror movie plot, which is very weird, and it's like chapter stuff, and like if you listen real closely, there's a lot of like knee slaps and finger things and a bunch of weird harmonies and like crazy parts and like this really weird acoustic guitar solo. It's because we had that whole day to like really peek on, like with a microscope, like what could this song be, instead of say, okay, 2 electric guitars, bass, and drums is good.
Yeah, there is something about that process that, especially if it's what you're used to, can feel more like just like a drill or like a plug and play. You just, all right, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, and it's a little bit, it can be mindless or a little bit numbing because you're just, the process and you come in and you do the thing. But when you allow yourself to surprise yourself in different methods, I think oftentimes you end up getting a product that kind of shocks you because it's not something you've done before, and it's kind of something that's maybe out of your wheelhouse in a good way. Were you ever tempted to go back through the other songs that you did by the time you finished the last song and tweak them at all, or was it just like once it's done, it's done?
Well, I love what you said, because like this whole checklist thing, I used to like, okay, well, we just gotta get this done. We gotta get this done before we leave today, or this record won't be done. But when you're there for a day, like, it's just like, should we have 2 bass guitars on there? Why not? Let's see if that makes sense. Or we'll try on this keyboard for a little bit. This isn't right. Or like this kit, we spent an hour with this particular kick drum, but we probably need this smaller one. Let's just try it again, and like we can really get in there. But so each day we would leave with everything fully recorded, but not mixed. So when we were mixing, there was I'm not gonna lie and say that we didn't go back after and put like maybe an extra harmony after hearing it for a minute, but and we did do that. But for the most part, you know, it was mainly just like mixing when it was done.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and a lot of it was like, you know, we knew like there might have been one or two tracks where, since it was the end of the day and I did my vocals, I went ahead and did like a harmony idea, knowing that I would rather have Tommy and Elijah sing it, just whether because, you know, it fits their voice better, or because it just or made the song seem more interesting than to have the same voice. And we did that a lot on the record, which I'd never really done that much before, and that was really fun too, having three other vocalists who, you know, understood like harmony and were looking into the lyrics, and like they were very, you know, it feels like many times you can hear like four people singing, and sometimes, and I don't even remember at this point, but like there's definitely a few times where it's, you know, three of us singing the lead vocal at once or something.
Yeah, that's always fun to get other people's ideas, especially vocally, because it adds so much texture and it kind of feels a little bit more like homey, like home vibes, like everybody hanging out and singing a song together, like old school.
Yeah, and that was the vibe that was kind of invited, because Tommy, who has his own studio, and like it's called We Bought a Zoo, and he kind of has his home studio, and you know, when you're there, you feel like you're at home and you're hanging out with your best friends and stuff, and it's very it is very organic like that, and like even like some of other Tommy's friends, like Zach Crook, who's a great singer and songwriter. He came and sang a little bit randomly on a track, and my friend Nate came and played guitar on a track just because he happened to be around, and same thing for my friend Philip. So, you know, it was very like, that vibe was very inviting. Everyone was drinking coffee. I don't even really drink coffee, but just like that kind of holding the cup, the warm cup, and just kind of all like just hanging out there and just enjoying it, having lunch together. It all kind of oozed out onto the recordings.
Yeah, exactly. I think that feeling does ooze into the recordings the same way. If you feel uncomfortable in a recording session, that's gonna definitely come in. It's like me personally, I know there's been times when even just hanging out with certain friends or acquaintances, and we're like, oh, let's try to make something, and then all of a sudden I've gotta sing, and I'm like, especially back in the day, and even still, I'm a little bit self-conscious about that and doing it in front of people. And you can tell in the recording pretty easily if you're uncomfortable. But on the reverse end of that, if everyone's really, you know, vibing and having a good time, I think that definitely comes through in the record. And that's what you really want, because you want people to feel that energy more than just thinking, oh, that snare sounds tight, that vocal line's pretty cool. It's like, well, are you getting that feeling too?
Yeah, I think there's like a mixture of experience mixed with also just being able to like kind of let go. Like this record was probably the record that I made with Tommy, and then it's probably my like seventh full record, like overall, or eighth. And you know, I always, you know, get up in my head about singing, but you know, Tommy knows me pretty well, and like he's really good at like kind of like coaxing a performance out of you and like giving you a vibe before you go in. And also I will say the fact that these songs were written like a day or a few before going in there, and them being so fresh, there's no like rules, and not really bogged down with like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Just kind of, you know, just what feels good in the moment, and you're not overthinking it. And then you can really, if you have that confidence to where, you know, you can let something go where it's supposed to, but also not be bogged down by like your own expectations, like then you can kind of like breathe, and it's just something like I do think some of the best singing or vocal performances on this record because of the nature of how spontaneous the songs were.
Yeah, that is cool that you don't overthink it, because you literally just wrote it like that day or a few days before.
Yeah, it's nothing too precious.
Right. I read that you were working with Drew Vandenberg and Matt Martin on Problematic for the People, which is a great album name. Were you working on that new album with them as well?
No, so I had spent a lot of time writing the songs for Problematic for the people. I was I was just kind of whittling down what I thought would be like the best full representation of like what it is I do or can do, and even trying to you know, take a few other genres that might not be that comfortable to, you know, experiment with that, but also stay true to myself or something. But I know Drew Vandenberg for a long time, and he made my first band called the District Attorney. So he made our first full length record, and he actually, you know, he married my wife and I. Like he's a good buddy of mine. I've known him for years, and when we were making that record, I went into the studio with him for like a day or two and made some demos where I played everything. And I'm not even that much of an instrumentalist in general, let alone not a very good drummer or bass player. But just kind of went in there and made those demos and kind of sat with them and had studio time. And then of course, you know, we were supposed to go in March of 2020, and then everything got shut down, so we didn't go back into the studio until probably about July or August. And we spent, I think in total about, I don't remember, it might have been 5 or 6 days, maybe, where we record all the bass and drums. 5 or 6 days, maybe 7, where we did all the instruments. And my friend Amy Leith came and played some strings on it, and my friend Jojo from Montreal and Montesquieu played some little piano on there, and we recorded that, and then took it, and so Drew produced and engineered it, and then we took it to Matt, and Matt I've made. I know Matt very well from Wanderwild. I helped work with Wanderwild. I'm technically their manager, but I just kind of.
I didn't know that.
That's just kind of their coach or something like that. I don't know. But so I've experienced Matt in the studio and I've always wanted to work with him on my stuff, and on my friend Tito Stone, who I play in his band as well. We finished a record with Matt, and I figured that would be a good experience to basically I took the music I did with Drew and then went with Matt, because Matt's such a great singer, and I really like his voice. I really like his like vocal tones, and I'm someone who needs a lot of like help or coaching or whatever with singing. So Matt and I basically did all the vocals, and then Matt, so we did all the vocals and the background vocals for the record, and then Matt mixed the whole thing. So that was my way of kind of having my cake and eat it too, by working with two of the greats. And at the time, that was that I was looking at it as if it was going to be the last record I was going to make, just because at that time I was about to get married, and you know, just thinking about, it was my third solo record. I feel like, you know, at that point I was like, I've written enough songs. I'm cool. I'm gonna go like work more like producing or writing with other people and just doing my own thing. I don't need to like make records anymore. And then of course, you know, just hanging out in the house a lot, started writing those songs, is what led to the Tommy project. And now, because of that, I'm probably not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, see, once you think you're done, they pull you back in.
Which is kind of cool. Instead of like trying to write a song, it just kind of happens. You're like, no, I don't need to do this anymore. And then it's like, oh, this is actually better than my last stuff. So I'll keep going.
It's almost frustrating, because you're like, when you really want it, you can't do it, and then when you're like, all right, whatever, I don't need it, suddenly it's given to you from the universe. You're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, I do like backing myself into a corner though. That was fun with the song title thing with Elijah and Tommy. I'd just be like, hey, pick a song title, and then I'm thinking, I hope they pick this one, because I only need to write one part, and then they would pick a song that really was just a title. I was like, okay, I gotta turn this into a song.
That's funny.
And that's something I'm starting to really enjoy now, just finding like different ways to want to finish something.
Yeah, I really brought up Drew Vandenberg and Matt Martin just because when reading about them, I realized how, like you said, you know, they're the greats. I didn't know them, and I realized that they've, you know, Drew was producer and engineer for Faye Webster and one of my favorite bands ever, Deerhunter. I'm a huge fan. And then Matt, also producer, engineer for Coin and Wanderwild, who I'll be interviewing on Tuesday. I'm very stoked about that.
Yeah. And Matt's the lead singer of Wanderwild.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool. I was focused on your research. I haven't done that.
Oh, so no, you're all good. And Matt also has recorded some Faye Webster stuff too, and has played drums with her. So Matt and Drew, like they both, they're both at like the top of their game, and I've known them both for a long time, and watching them consistently get better and better, and the projects that brought in. On the local level and just on artists from all over the country. And Matt just moved to Nashville, which sorry to lose him, but also he's still very active with Wanderwild stuff, and we're mixing this Tito Stone record that we're working on and sending these mixes, and it's with technology today, even though he's in Nashville, it doesn't feel like he's that far. But and Drew and I are working together on a South by Southwest party that we're doing up in Austin, because we used to do some of those together. And Drew is super talented producer, engineer, also savvy businessman, and just jack of all trades.
What's exactly is a South by Southwest party? Are you guys putting on like a few shows there?
Well, so I used to work for the Georgia Theater. And even prior to my time working there, there was an Athens and Austin party in Austin, Texas during South by Southwest, and that was probably going on for a few years before. I think they did it for like 14 years or something like that, and I got more heavily involved about like 9 years ago, and it was at this bar in Austin during that festival called Sidebar, and there's an indoor stage, outdoor stage, and we put like 14 bands in there. So it was called Athens in Austin, so we have majority amount of them being Athens bands, but then also bands that would come through Athens that we know. Like it was really fun to see. Over the years, like this small party, we had Krungbin, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
And we had them perform that. Now they're
huge.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest bands out there.
Wow.
So, and we had Reduced to Freeze. One year we had Moon Taxi.
Oh, cool.
Future Birds. I'm trying to think of some others. But regardless, over the years, the actual festival, so during the day they have like day parties, and they're all unofficial day parties. And at nighttime, they're official parties, which basically like you bring your badge, you get to get in. If the unofficial parties, that's like not necessarily for badge holders. That's just kind of like the big party in Austin. But for the last few years, we've had an official party where we put 6 bands at a venue in Austin, and we couldn't do it last year, but because of COVID. Now we're just doing the official party when we're instead of having the day party, we're just having the one official party this year that we'll be calling Athens in Austin. So, Drew works works on a smaller label called Strolling Bones Records. That is the like a junior label from the parent company of like New West Records, and so it's like some of his acts, some of the acts I work with, and we're also working with the Georgia Theater and a few other Athens entities to kind of put the event on. But we're going to have another band I manage called the Pink Stones. They're going to be playing.
Yeah, Gideon's in that, right? Gideon Johnson.
Yeah, Gideon's in that band. Gideon is in those 2 songs that I released in the upcoming record. He's in his brother's band.
Gideon gets around, dude.
Yes,
and he should.
He should. He's a fantastic drummer, fantastic producer. He's a great musician, singer all around, and I hate to always talk about his age, but he's only 18.
I know.
He's brilliant, and he's already like a full-fledged rock star. Yeah,
I talked about him on the Low Talker interview last week, and I feel like he is probably over it always. Whenever he gets a compliment, it's always probably something like, "You're so good," and also you're only 18 years old. But at the same time, it's like it's just a testament to like just the raw talent of this kid, you know?
Yeah, but also, like, have you ever seen a 40-year-old pick up the guitar for the first time and, like, even try to learn? Just, I think age really kind of has nothing to do with it, sort of. It's really, like, the age of once you started playing your instrument, you know? And Gideon got started at a young age, and he's very naturally gifted, but also, I mean, he works very, 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 very hard for it, and he's very passionate about music, and he's always down to record. He always is down to make himself available, and his playing is some of my just favorite moments on most of the recordings that he's involved in, and he just has it.
Yeah. Yeah, it made me really, I mean, I have always known this, but sometimes these lessons hit you harder at certain times than others, but how valuable communication is. Because he hadn't heard any of these songs when I recorded with him about a month ago. He didn't hear any of them, and he, like, you know, we played through them a few times, and by the end of the, you know, once we went to record, I was sweating because I felt like him and Clark Sound knew my songs better than I did. And now I was the one that, like, better not fuck up, because that's just how talented they are.
I think it's talent, and I've been listening to Clark Sound. Is Clark Sound his name, his band?
It's Clark Hamilton. But yeah, okay, Clark Sound is like his moniker, I guess.
I have been listening to his stuff, and I really, really like it. I've not met him, but I think we have some mutual friends. But I can only imagine based on the attention to detail to his recordings, and also knowing how Gideon is, that, like, Gideon's not like, okay, I'm here to play, just get in here so I can go home and get out of here. Like, he wants to be making music. He, like, you bring him a song, and him having his own opinion on it and grafting himself on it is like that, you know, when he would do it for my stuff, that would give me confidence as a writer, or just for the song in general. Like, you know, you feed off his energy, and it helps bring the song to a place that is beyond your expectations, because you have someone whose heart is in it as well.
Absolutely. That energy in a room is so delicate, and you know, it takes one wrong thing from somebody to just screw it up. And when I was there with, you know, Clark, Gideon, and Patrick of Canary Affair, he's the one who engineered it at his studio and at his house. But everyone is just so down to, like, collaborate and listen, try new ideas, and just hang out and not, like, be, like, stressful or anything. And it was such a blast doing that, and it made me really just appreciate how important that energy in the room is. Kind of going back to what you were saying with you know, this new album that you have coming out, how lovely it was being in that room, hanging out with your friends, sipping coffee, and kind of just, you know, throwing shit at the wall and seeing, like, how songs were going to turn out without any pressure.
And then it's really cool when, you know, 3 or 4 people are going, like, yeah, that's it, oh my god, and we're going, like, oh, I can't believe we just landed on that, that's such a great idea, how come we didn't think about that earlier? But it's all clicking, and when everything's clicking, you know, you really feel, like, lifted by that.
Yeah, that validation is huge.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about labels, or at least we've mentioned them a handful of times. I think a lot of my listeners, and me included, sometimes we feel a little bit in the dark about labels, and I know you've been represented by a couple indie labels over the years. What is your take on a label's role in the artist's life, and what have your experiences been with labels? What advice would you have for artists who want to be repped by labels, or are just confused about maybe how to get one, or if they even need one at all?
Right. Well, I'll give, I think, my brief experience with the label stuff. My first 2 acts were released under very indie, very, you know, DIY, like, label called This Is American Music, and, you know, and they're fantastic. They were very much, like, help guiding coming in, like, this is back when I think the record might have been released in 2012 or something like that. So I think CDs were still like kind of okay. People were still into CDs or something. So we'd make a lot of CDs and put them in record stores, and they would help us get some plays on XM, because Spotify was not really much of a thing, or at least starting to become a thing then, and help us with touring. But we didn't really tour that much. We just played. We would go up to New York a few times and tour up to New York a few times and back, or go down to New Orleans and up, or go out to Austin and back a few times. And we weren't, there's a label where it's like, Dave Matthews Band has his label, and they're just like, they're moving all these units, and it was never that. But I mean, the people we were working with This American Music were always great, because they're in it with you, and they would help kind of guide, and it really wasn't about like, here's this fat check for your record. It's more, I would always tell people, you get as much out of it as you put into it. If you think, and I think this applies to, I think the whole part of your question is that if you think you're just going to record a good record and then put it on Spotify, and then that's just going to make you a star, or make money from it or something, that's probably not what's going to happen. You have to put in a lot of work to it. You have to do your social media stuff. You have to tour. You also have to tour the right way. You also have to figure out how to find a new way to break your music into this barrier to entry that so many bands are trying to do. So my goal was never to make to become famous, or it's more like here's a record. Let's play a few shows. Let's make sure the art is as good as possible, and let's feel good about what we're doing, and not overextend ourselves. Because I don't think I was ever into like, I'm getting in a van and just touring until it works. And after those few records, me and some few friends started a very like Athens like local thing called Laser Brains, which was really just like, bring your, like the people that we were friends with, or the records we liked. We found those people who are just making records, but they don't know how to like get press, or submit for Spotify playlisting, or even book their own shows sometimes. So it would be kind of like, it's more like a collaborative effort. And then that kind of turned into this other thing I started with some friends called Super Canoe, which is like that plus a video component, and just live production component, and just kind of giving artists maybe the encouragement to say, like, you don't need to go spend thousands of dollars on a press, give like $5,000 to some company that's only going to get you like one premiere or something, because you can get the premieres on your own. You just have to have while you're watching a movie, just like reach out to them on your own, and don't be offended if they don't respond the first time. Just be polite and keep responding. Just be very persistent. And it's kind of more that guidance thing. And then, on the flip side, I work with the Pink Stones, manage them, and they're on New West Records, and that's a fully functional, multiple locations spread out the United States label, and getting to see that work on a whole other level. I mean, if a band can get into that, that's great. And I think that's probably your best bet. But there's so many artists out there who are just kind of doing their own thing too. I've recognized that the type of music I make, I don't think it's really what like the majority of folks are out there necessarily like hoping for, or like I don't think that's what's going to be on Top of the Pops or something. But it's the type of stuff I like to make, and so I just kind of want to do the best I can. And when I record something and release, I would like to give it as much effort as I can sustain, in terms of like, here's a live video, or here's a new single or something, and turn it into vinyl and sell it to vinyl, and hopefully the reward is also just writing a good song and recording it, and because whatever starts in your head, it doesn't ever really always end up being exactly what was in your head when it's finally mastered. But if you can get 85% of that, or 90%, or sometimes you write a song that's slow and turns out to be a fast thing, it's just like blowing. it exceeds your expectations, and then that's enough. And then the next part is releasing it, and hopefully maybe some people hearing it and liking it and responding to it, and them responding to it well is not necessarily like it's just great. Someone can relate to or enjoy something that just popped out of your head, and that's always crazy. And then of course the next part is playing a show and having people come to those shows, and hopefully come in there because they want to, and because they want to hear certain songs or something. So it's kind of just like inch by inch, just trying to set out what your goals are, and that was a long way to say, like, I don't think you necessarily need a label. It just depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to get distribution all over the world, then yeah, you probably need a big label. But then there's this way to have distribution all over the world, which is Spotify and all this stuff. So you can digitally, you can be your own label, your own manager. I think people having help is great, but there's also, I've never been a fan of just like, you take it and you release it, because if you're not involved with it, then it's not going to, you're not going to really enjoy the result from it, because you didn't put any work into that aspect. And I feel like making a good record is not even 50% of it in terms of like having it be successful. Most of it is a lot of grinding and probably a lot of ass kissing and a lot of hard work, that and a lot of hours put in that might get ignored. But if the goal is to get people to hear the record, like get a lot of people to hear the record, yeah, some people get lucky and stuff, but you're gonna have to be prepared to put in a lot of work. Just kind of seeing like, do I do a TikTok thing? Do I do some TikTok stuff or whatever? And I decided that I'm not going to do TikTok. I tried for 2 seconds and I was like, huh. But it does seem like if you want to be successful, you need to get some TikTok on. So
yeah,
you gotta weigh what you want versus what you're willing to stomach.
That is so true. That made me laugh about TikTok, because that definitely, I mean, every day I feel like I see another artist who I know or know of make that jump, make that leap into the TikTok world. And I'm not like mad about it. It just makes me wonder, am I wrong for not being so attracted to it? It just seems like something that just seems like another thing I have to keep up with that will probably make me cringe when I do it. Right. Not necessarily for anybody else. And I've noticed the success of a lot of people when they do it. So I'm not putting that down.
And I've seen some, and I think they're awesome. And then I've tried to do some, or like stuff on Instagram, like this doesn't feel right, and also I don't really have a knack for it. But it makes me. I mean, sometimes it works, and I think people are like able to take this like new medium and make it something original. But like, back when I was in high school, and like getting records or like getting NME or getting like a music magazine and just like, or Uncut, and reading through it, or like Stomp and Stammer and going like, okay, who are these bands, and like reading these interviews and like getting the records and looking at the liner notes, and like you got these interview things, and some of these artists, like some of your favorite artists, are like they become like these mystery figures, like people you look up to or people you admire. And now like you can have like a favorite songwriter of yours like on their Instagram making like one of those duck faces. and you look at that and you're like, oh man, you're the person that wrote that song that like greatly affected my life, and you're making this like you're not supposed to make the duck faces. You're supposed to be this enigmatic figure icon
of my imagination.
Right. I mean, I'm a big Elliot Smith fan, and I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying, like, he died, he obviously passed away, and it was very tragic, but just imagine, and I don't think he would ever do this, but imagine like 2022, Elliot Smith has an Instagram page and he's making a duck face. Like that would kind of kill the music a little bit for me.
Yeah, I get it.
Just a little bit. I guess maybe that sentiment is more meant for artists who or not, who are taken to like TikTok or Instagram in this like sort of forced way. Like, I'm a big fan of Rufus Wainwright. He's one of my favorite songwriters, and especially during lockdown, like he would do all these videos, and when he's singing and performing, it's great. But when he's like talking like, "Hey, Instagram fans," I'm like, "Oh man, you don't really want to do this. You're an artist. You write operas and stuff. Like, you don't want you to be making you do this. Like, you don't need to do this to secure your fan base." And then there's some acts that they do. I'm like, yeah, I love their social media stuff. It's awesome. So a lot of these new artists, like, they're coming up along with this technology, so it feels a little natural. Sorry.
No, you're good.
My dog came in.
Aww. Who do we got here?
This is Sonny.
Hi, Sonny.
He's a Pomeranian, but he got a haircut, so now he looks like a bear cub.
I was gonna say he's got real short hair for a Pomeranian.
Mm-hmm. We both got haircuts yesterday.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you guys are looking real fly here. Cool. Well, while we got Sonny here, maybe that's our cue to move over to the last 5, where I'm just gonna ask you 5 quick questions, and we'll be done.
Okay. Do you want me to answer, or you want Sonny to answer?
I'd love to hear both opinions on these. Cool. Question number 1 is in the studio or playing live?
Sonny's more of a live player, but I love the studio. I love the studio so much. Like, the live thing, like, when it goes great, it's awesome. It's really fun to get that out. And if I don't play live for a long time, I definitely miss it and crave it. But there's always, like, you get off the stage and you're like, oh man, was that sound like it sounded up there, or did it sound better than it sounded up there, and all that anxiety. But my favorite thing is like going to the studio and with what you have for the day. Like, I love the first initial rough mixes. Those are my favorites because you get to kind of hear it and it's fun, and you don't have that pressure of feeling like it's just the finished product. You feel like you just kind of feel all the possibilities, and that's my favorite thing, is having rough mixes and being in the studio, and also that magic when something's working, when something's like, this song is clicking, or this song that I brought to the table, which I wasn't quite sure about, is actually the best thing I brought to this project so far.
Yeah, well, that's interesting about the first rough mix, because I have realized that about myself, that first rough mix I get back, and every time that's happened, I'm like psyched, because I spent all day on this thing with other producers and all that, and then I get to listen to it all the time. I'm like, man, I can't believe I made this. And then from there, like, especially like the second mix, I'm almost always let down a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of it is also, like, especially if you're working with people, with good people, like that rough mix, that's kind of your first instinct, and that's also the engineer producer's first instinct too. Like, okay, we'll put this down. Like, it's what they're gravitating towards. So, I mean, whether maybe consciously or subconsciously, like, it's kind of what the song needs, and you don't necessarily need to overthink it.
Right. Yeah, and it's important to keep some of those things in the rough mix in, like, try to keep it in as much as possible. Like, maybe this one thing sounds super loud to you in the rough mix, and you're like, we'll fix it. And then you do fix it, and you're like, wait, the magic's gone. It's like, what happened? So, like, in fixing something that you thought was wrong, you kind of take the magic out a little bit.
Right. Absolutely.
Can be very weird like that. I'm with you on in the studio for sure. That's what I would say. But question number 2, what is a perfect album front to back?
Yeah, I have Sonny as well. So for, I guess I'm going to say Rufus Wainwright, Want One.
Okay.
It's this record he made. It's a 2-parter. One record's called Want One, another one's called Want Two. It's like, I think the total project is like 30 songs, but he wrote this record when he was in rehab for like crystal meth, and he wrote like 30 songs, and it was supposed to be called Want, but his label's like, put out first half and call it Want One, and then a year or two later we'll release the second half. And Want Two is great, but Want One is perfect. There's just some crazy songs on there, some of my favorite writing. And are you familiar with that show Orange is the New Black, or that show Russian Doll?
I am familiar with them, but I haven't watched either.
Well, the lead actress of Russian Doll, her name is Natasha Lyonne, who was
Yeah.
like in rehab with Rufus Wainwright when he was writing the record, and there's like a song called Natasha about it. It's just like it's all this. There's like a lot of cool stories about it.
Oh,
And I
no
think
way.
yeah, I think Sonny's favorite record, top to bottom, is Prince, "Sign of the Times."
Oh, yeah. Which one is that? Because he has so many albums, I have to think about the cover, like the cover of it.
It's he put. I guess he played a lot. Most of the records he played all the instruments. I guess it's kind of like. It just looks like you're kind of like in a street alley, but it has like You Got the Look and Adore. It's the record. It was released in 1987, which is my birth year.
Oh, nice.
And I was kind of like thinking like that's like the record from my birth year, and it was the one. I don't think it was right after Purple Rain, but it was. I mean, he'd already cemented himself as like this massive superstar with Purple Rain. So and Sign of the Times is just like I think is like kind of got some of his pop elements, but also getting really weird.
I've never seen this cover before, so I definitely don't know
It's a
this
great album
album.
cover. I don't know how to describe
Yeah, it is pretty
that
sick.
album cover. Yeah, but it's you probably know, if you listen to the records, probably one or two songs you probably recognize. Like My Morning Jacket covers that song "I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man" a lot, and
Wow.
Alicia Keys covers that song "Adore," and but it's a classic record. And then also, he also sang Stevie Wonder's songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah. I mean,
Great
how could you not say that's a perfect
Yeah.
record?
That's one of my faves.
My friend got that for me for Christmas like 5
Really?
years ago on vinyl, and I mean,
great
I
gift.
only knew like Sir Duke and whatever the other 2 or 3 big hits are, and
Yeah,
I
Isn't
was
She
like,
Lovely?
yeah, Isn't She Lovely? That's right. And then I would listen to it. I'm like, damn, these are funky.
Yeah.
I'm
And like
into it.
Pastime Paradise became Gangster's Paradise, a huge like Coolio
Oh, yeah.
rap hit, and then Will Smith turned I Wish into Wild West. Funny story about that record, or not? No, Steve Wonder came and did like an anniversary of that album, and played at Phillips Arena, and it's like my favorite record, and wasn't sure I was gonna be able to go because of work, but I was able to go like last minute and went to StubHub and got like these 2 tickets for like $40 each. They were
Wow.
second row. It was incredible.
No.
It was incredible.
Second row, $40 to
I
Stevie
think
Wonder.
someone was trying to offload them, but it was
Yeah.
it was a StubHub miracle.
That is a StubHub miracle. That you never hear about that. It's always $400 for, nosebleeds.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the album with Have a Talk with God?
Mm-hmm.
That might
Yeah.
be my favorite of all the ones that I didn't know going into that album.
I think mine is probably Summer Soft, or probably Summer Soft.
Okay.
I love that song. I love the drums in that song. I love everything about that record. What's a perfect record for you?
Ooh, I always love answering this one. Actually, I think the last band I interviewed, not Low Talker, but in between Low Talker and You, they're gonna come out in like a few weeks, but they said what I would say, which is In Rainbows by Radiohead.
Okay. I very vividly remember getting that record when I guess I was in college, and House of Cards is an all-time song.
Oh yeah.
I love Radiohead. I always say like Hail to the Thief is my favorite. No, I'm sorry. Kid A is my favorite.
Okay, I was a little nervous for a moment. I'm like, really?
Sorry.
Hail to the Thief?
Kid A is my favorite. Then
Yeah.
the Bends. Then the Bends. Then Hail to the Thief. Then OK Computer. And then maybe in Rainbows.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And Rainbows is that low for you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But I do love it. I mean,
Yeah.
House of Cards is like all-time guitar tune.
Yeah, I think, and it seems like you agree, but I feel like it's kind of controversial. I think Kid A is better than OK Computer.
Absolutely.
I think it's got a lot less skips. Like there's
Absolutely.
3 or 4 songs on OK Computer I really don't need to listen to anymore the way I used to
agree.
want to.
I agree.
Kid A just changed the world as well.
Absolutely. It was when I was in high school. I would go to sleep I would either listen to Kid A or like Joni Mitchell Blue, or this like Jeff Buckley like solo Telecaster record called Live at the Cine, and those were like the only records I had one of those like 6 CD changers.
Yeah.
And I would have those would be part of that.
I love that, man. Yeah, I can talk about Radiohead all day, but for the sake of the listeners, we'll scoot on to the next question. Number 3, who is your dream artist or producer to work with?
I guess. Okay, well, there's 2 of us. Sonny's gonna say Noel Gallagher from Oasis.
Yeah.
Which would be awesome. I mean, maybe just to hang, but I don't think he'd be too interested in anything that we were doing. But and then I do really like Blake Mills, and I think it would be really fun to work on a track with him. He's like my favorite guitarist, and the percussion sounds he gets are just so cool, and he seems like a really interesting hang.
I ran into Pino Palladino when they were doing the Pino Palladino Blake Mills record in LA.
Notes, what's it called?
Notes Without Attachment or something, or Notes with Attachments. Yeah. Pino Palladino was outside smoking a cigarette, and I saw him. I was like, that's fucking Pino Palladino right there, and I gave him a wave,
amazing.
but I didn't have the balls to go say hey.
I wonder if he would be cool, because I don't think maybe outside of hanging out of the studio, I don't think people are like Pino Palladino, but right. if you know, and I saw him play with D'Angelo at the Tabernacle.
Oh, that's sick.
It was awesome, and he's played on so many classic records like Don Henley tracks, and it's fucking awesome. He's so great.
Yeah, I didn't realize how historic he was, how many bands he's played with, and how many artists he plays bass with. I found out about him because he did the John Mayer trio.
That's right, with Steve Jordan.
Yeah, another icon.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. My friend Jeremy, who plays drums, who's played drums in most of my records except for the stuff with Gideon. He sent me this Steve Jordan interview that I was watching last week. It's just cool to hear him chat about. He was talking about going to see the Eagles live, which was interesting, and then he's playing with the Stones now, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's so sick. I didn't know that. Was it the Who that Pino Palladino ended up touring with because their bassist died? Maybe it wasn't the Who. Maybe it was someone else.
I do know that Zach Starkey, which is Richard Starkey, aka Ringo Starr's son.
Ringo.
He played with the Who for a good bit, and he's Ringo Starr is the start and end for drums. I mean, he's the best, but Zach is technically a crazier, harder hitting drummer, and I don't think Ringo could really necessarily, even at the top of his game, could really handle a Who set.
Yeah.
But even though I prefer Ringo's drumming, but Zach is this insane drummer. He also played with Oasis for the last few years of their tour run. I don't know about Pino Palladino and the Who, but
it might have been a different band. I might be confusing them with somebody else. But yeah. So Blake Mills, great answer. I don't really know any of his stuff other than that album with Pino.
Yeah, you should check. You should check out 2 of his solo records. I would encourage listening to both kind of together. One's called Break Mirrors and one's called Hi Ho. He's a great lyricist, great singer. I love his voice and his lyrics, but he's also the best guitar player out there. But he's also done stuff with Fiona Apple and Lucinda Williams and Alabama Shakes, and
nice.
He produced that and co-wrote some of the songs on that second Alabama Shakes record, Sound and Color.
I feel like that was a pivotal moment for not only for them, but for me maybe. That first song, Sound and Color, is insane.
And I'm going to kind of guess that most of that in that first Alabama Shakes record's great too, but the second one, all the cool shit, I'm gonna probably guess that was Blake Mills.
Yeah.
He's my favorite guitar player, hands down, but as a producer, he's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. I'll definitely have to check out his stuff more because I've heard his name a lot, and what I have heard that I have listened to, mainly just that Pinot album,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like wildly impressed by the creativity and just the sound of everything, the mixing and all of that.
Yeah, that Break Mirrors record, which is his first like solo record, I think he made that as like this is like what I can do as a producer. So here's like my kind of like resume sort of.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I'll check out after this. I
Oh
always
yeah.
like to think of a couple artists that would be cool for my guests to work with.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
first one I'm sure you'll know, and I'm sure a lot of people will know, Jack Antonoff. I think that
Mm-hmm.
would be really sick.
I mean, the record that I did with Tommy and Elijah and Gideon with the Lisa Simpson horror, like I probably listened to way too much folklore. So
Oh yeah,
and I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, and I do
nice.
love Jack Antonoff, and I haven't listened to that much Bleachers, but that most recent Bleachers record is pretty solid.
Yeah, I agree.
The
That I haven't
How
really
Dare You
listened to.
Want More?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
very
have not
Springsteen.
listened to Bleachers that much other than that album
Yeah,
either.
so,
But it's pretty sick. I'm gonna take a moment to brag about my best friend because she's a
good.
photographer, and she did all of the images and took all the photos for Taylor Swift's Lover album.
Real? Oh, yeah. I think I mean, I don't know your friend, but I remember seeing someone on Instagram saying like, "This is how I came across this like this thing." I remember. I don't remember the exact story, but that's really cool. And that record's really fucking good. It's just funny
Yeah,
because she never got to tour it, and then locked down, and then she made this other record, which is Folklore, which is like one of the great. I think it's one of the great pop songwriting records of all time. But Lover
and
is pretty awesome too.
it's also like the opposite of Lover. Like it's
Mhm.
so down and not
Mhm.
depressing, but it's a lot more devoid of color. And Lover
Right.
is so
Yeah.
loud and colorful and bold.
Yeah, it's all, and like I love. I think probably my favorite track is that I like Cruel Summer, but I also like.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a track on that record that I don't really like. Though.
Yeah, I love. Is it not Cuts? Is it Cut? Death by a Thousand Cuts. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That one's sick. The only other thing I was gonna say was the less known artist is Zach Schwartz from Spirit of the Beehive.
Oh yeah. I've been.
That would be a really interesting
I've been listening to that.
collaboration.
I've been listening to that record, and I think they're playing at Aisle 5.
Yeah, I
soon.
think I'm gonna go because Body Meat's going with them too, and I love both
Nice.
of them.
What date is that show again?
I think it's March
Like,
5th.
Okay, so I'm probably not going to be allowed to with the baby, but like there's a list of shows that I really want to go to. I'm like, I'm probably not going to be able to go to this. Like, Hippocampus is playing it in Atlanta, like
Oh,
the day,
oh yeah,
the due date though. So I'm not going, but I'll be okay.
nice.
It's alright.
My friend Bobby Rethwish is opening for them, which is really sick.
Really?
I just found that out like a few weeks ago. I was like, what? That's fucking huge because they're
I
they're
really,
from Michigan or
yeah,
Minnesota.
that's awesome. I really like me some Hippocampus. That's some clever pop for sure.
Yes, yeah, clever pop. Great word for that.
Yeah, I
But
need to
yeah,
listen to some Body Meat. Yeah, I've been seeing that name. I need
have you
to
heard
listen to some.
him?
No, no, I've just seen the name, but I need to listen to it.
Well, buckle up.
Yeah.
His shit is insane.
How many records?
Um, he's got one, like, I guess it's an album, but it's kind of short. It's like 7 or 8 songs that
Perfect.
came out a few, like 2 or 3 years ago, and then he put out an album in 2021, so last year,
Awesome.
called. I don't know that one as much. I know the other one more, but I mean, you just go listen to the first 5 big
Yeah.
songs on Spotify.
No.
It's insane. I've never heard production like what he
Online.
does. Yeah, so
I'll definitely check that out.
yeah, it's literally like the sound of washing machines like exploding,
Oh,
but in a
cool.
good
I like
way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely check out Body Meat. The fourth question here is, what's on your musical rotation right now?
Let's see. I can cheat and look. Let's see. But listen to a lot of Elijah's record, even though
Nice.
even though I've been one of the lucky few to have had it for about over a year. But something about it being out has been making me want to celebrate listening to it. Been listening to a lot of Gustav and a lot of Geese, and been listening to a lot of let's see, what was it? I've been listening to a lot of Hanson, if I'm being honest. I'm a big fan.
Hanson, whoa.
Yeah, good pop band. And Gustav Geese, and I've been listening to a lot of Oasis because I'm usually always doing that. But
nice.
We were putting together that Oasis tribute thing that we're pushing to the spring. But so I'm always kind of listening to that stuff. Always kind of in a Britpop mood usually. And then I'm trying to think what there's some record that I feel like I'm very unprepared with that question because I want to give a good answer. I really like my buddy Blake Cole's new track that he made with Tommy called The Rules I Break. It's a really good song. And awesome. Have you ever listened to Remy Wolf?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that record's nuts. That's a fun
People
record.
mention her all the time on this podcast.
Yeah. She is a no hook, or like there's just like 20 hooks in every song. It's great.
Yep.
Every lyric, every movement is just like this catchy earworm.
And it's so like in your face. Every
Yes.
line, every sound is just like right there. It's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know how someone can sing like that either.
Yeah. Last question here before we get going. You mentioned him earlier, and I'm very much feeling this artist right now, so I feel like I need to ask you your opinion. Mm-hmm. What are your top 3 Elliot Smith records?
Because I really go back and forth, but I guess Either Or is number 1, and then XO, and then Figure 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Either Or and XO kind of go back and forth to me. But in terms of like full records, because like, you know, I love Roman Candle and I love the self-titled record, and but you know, some of it's like really, really dark, and some of it like that first, and some of it like kind of sounds the same. Some of those first few records, you gotta be in a certain mood. But what I love about XO and Figure 8 is that, you know, they can have the downtrodden songs and like these rock pop songs, and then Either Or is just kind of like it's like really like it's kind of a mix of everything, like it and just the way we were talking about. I was talking with Nate Nelson, who I've been making some tracks with a while back, about Either Or and some of those like the song Big Nothing, or even like Alameda, like those percussions, like it sounds like a broken kit. Like it doesn't sound like, oh no, I'm thinking of Speed Trials.
Yeah.
Like Speed Trials, it's not like a real kit, or at least I don't think it is. It just sounds like dun, 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 and like these. It definitely sounded like they were catching a vibe, not so like let's get drummer and bass and guitars in there, let's record it and go back and do it. Like they're like, okay, only these instruments and stuff, we're breaking up the kit like this to serve the song, not drumsticks and drummers and stuff.
So wild. Yeah, that's interesting. It seems like Either Or is the crown jewel of his albums, and what is interesting is since I've gotten into him maybe a couple weeks ago, the one I know best is his self-titled album. So I think I've listened to is it Circle 8? What is that? Figure 8, sorry. I've listened to Figure 8 all the way through once, maybe Either Or all the way through once. I've never listened to XO, never listened to Roman Candle. So
you gotta listen to XO. I mean, okay. XO, like, depending on what, like I said, Either Or was number 1, but it could be XO tomorrow if you ask me tomorrow. So I mean,
gotcha.
XO is also a perfect, like, you know, if Either Or is like a little like kind of druggy and downtrodden. I mean, they're all kind of druggy and downtrodden because it's Elliot Smith. But if Either Or is like a little too sad, and Figure Eight might be a little too rockin', and like then EXO is like this perfect thing in the middle. It's the record he made after he got like the Oscar nomination for Good Will Hunting, so he kind of had like this like, I think that's the one he made, or I could be mixing it up, but either way, it seems like he had more budget in the studio, got to experiment more with like piano stuff and drums and full band and just like string, or I think there's strings or horns in there, but either way, the production level jump from Either Or to EXO is incredible, and then he kind of continues that throughout Figure Eight.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, now I got some homework. Definitely listen to that. Some Rufus Wainwright and Blake Mills.
That's right.
Nice.
That's right.
Cool. Well, Drew Beskin, that's our time here on That Note. Thank you again for joining me for an episode and discussing Lisa Simpson Fangs' horror movie plot, your 2 singles out right now that everybody needs to go check out. Also, everybody get ready for the new album coming out later this year. I'm very excited to hear about it. These 2 songs that are on it are just fantastic, and I can't stop listening to it. And thank you for coming again. Thanks for coming and talking about your creative process behind all this.
Of course, it was fun. Thank you for letting me ramble, and thank you for doing this. This is really a fun outlet.
Yes, it's a fun outlet for me too, so I'm glad to hear that you feel the same way.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
Of course, Drew. I'll talk to you later. See you, man. Bye. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.